All right, so get this. Today we're diving deep into the world of a guy who some call a visionary, others, well, a straight-up villain.
Yeah, he's been called a mastermind, even a manipulator.
We're talking about none other than Larry Fink, top dog at BlackRock.
The thing about Fink is he runs this, financial giant BlackRock.
They manage, what, trillions?
Trillions, yeah. Biggest asset manager globally.
That's like more dough than some countries have, right?
Oh, absolutely. Their influence touches governments, industries, you name it.
So, for this deep dive, what's the deal? Are we looking at a financial superhero or a puppet master? Grifter or gifted?
Well, we've got a whole stack of articles, interviews, analyses. Some are totally Team Fink, others not so much.
So some serious skepticism in the mix.
Oh, yeah. We got to look at how he climbed to the top, how he plays the political game, and this whole ESG thing he's pushing.
ESG.
Yeah.
That's a buzzword I keep hearing, but honestly, I'm a little fuzzy on it.
We'll break it all down. But first, to really get Larry Fink, we got to rewind back to the 80s. Wall Street's going wild.
Big hair, big money, big ambitions.
Exactly. And a young Larry Fink is just starting out.
So how does this guy, who starts as a bond trader, end up running the whole show? Gotta be a wild ride.
It really is. And it starts with a pretty big stumble, actually. Early on, Fink made a trading error. Cost his firm millions.
Ouch. That's gotta leave a mark.
Big time. But, that experience, it was pivotal. It drilled into him this deep understanding of risk management. It became like his mantra.
So he turned a massive loss into a core principle.
You got it. And that focus on risk, that's what led him to co-found BlackRock back in 88.
88, okay, so they start small.
Yeah, small outfit, mostly focused on bonds, fixed income stuff.
But then comes
Aladdin.
Like the magic lamp.
Kinda.
Yeah.
But it's magic in the finance world. Aladdin, it's BlackRock's risk management platform powered by tech.
Tech, so algorithms and data, that kind of thing.
Exactly. This super powerful tool uses all that data to analyze risk globally, like on a massive scale.
Okay, but for those of us who don't speak Wall Street, what's the big deal? What does Aladdin actually do?
Imagine investing is like this huge, crazy maze, right? Aladdin is like having a map showing you the safest paths, the traps to avoid, the best way to your goal.
So it's about making smarter choices.
Exactly. Helps BlackRock and their clients avoid those big pitfalls.
So while everyone else was chasing the next hot stock, Fink was building this tech powerhouse. Sneaky.
Very. And it paid off big time. BlackRock starts buying up other asset managers, bringing them into the Aladdin system, and their influence just explodes.
So they weren't just playing the game, they were changing the rules.
Right. And then, 99, right when the dot-com bubble's about to burst, they go public.
The dot-com bubble. Everyone was going crazy for IPOs back then.
Yeah, but BlackRock's IPO, it was called the most boring IPO ever. Stock did well, but steady, no wild swings.
So, in a time of total frenzy, Fink stays cool and still wins. That's not how Wall Street usually rolls.
That's Fink for you. Long-term thinking, focus on fundamentals, doesn't get caught up in the hype. And that approach, with Aladdin getting bigger and bigger, it shot BlackRock right to the top. By 2009, they're the world's biggest asset manager.
Okay, so we've got Fink, starts with a wipeout, builds a tech empire, becomes king of Wall Street. But what does that even mean for, normal people?
Right, how does this affect our lives? Well, that's the million-dollar question, because that kind of financial power, it comes with a lot of political pull.
Okay, so Fink's got the Midas touch when it comes to money, but what about politics? Does he have that same power there?
That's where things get really interesting. And maybe a little dicey.
Uh-oh, dicey. Now you've got me hooked. Tell me more.
You see, Fink, he insists he's not a political animal.
Oh, really?
Says he just wants to work with, whoever's in charge.
To do what?
To build a better financial future, he says. For BlackRock's clients, of course.
Right. Downplaying the power, classic move. But come on, with all that BlackRock muscle, no way he's staying out of politics.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And his actions, they definitely speak louder than words, He's meeting with different presidents, going to those global economic shindigs.
And let's not forget those letters he writes.
Oh, yeah. Those yearly letters to CEOs, like mini manifestos on the state of the world.
So maybe not a politician in the, elected sense, but definitely a power player. But where does he stand politically? Left, right?
Yeah.
Or some kind of Wall Street hybrid?
He's often seen as leaning left, especially on things like climate change, globalization, that sort of thing.
Okay, so a bit of a liberal.
But here's the kicker. He's managed to piss off both sides.
Wait, so he's getting heat from liberals and conservatives. That's like a superpower. How does he even do that?
Well, for one, people look at BlackRock's political donations, right? They've given big bucks to both Democrats and Republicans.
Including some who are, like, totally opposed on stuff like climate change.
Yeah, exactly. It's almost like they're hedging their bets, making sure they've got friends on both sides of the aisle.
So maybe it's less about ideology and more about just having influence, making sure BlackRock always has a seat at the table.
Right. And then you've got this whole ESG thing, which has become a real hot potato for Fink.
Oh, right. ESG.
Yeah.
You promised you'd explain that. So for the folks at home who are like, what the heck is ESG?
Yeah.
Break it down for us. What is it and why is Fink so into it?
So ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance. Basically, it's a way to judge companies, but not just on their profits.
So it's like, are they making money, but are they also being good citizens?
Yeah. You look at their environmental impact, their social responsibility, how well they're run, the governance part.
So it's not just, hey, are they making money? It's also, are they treating their employees right? Are they polluting? Are they doing shady stuff?
Exactly. And Fink, he's been this big champion for ESG investing, saying companies got to have a purpose, got to think about more than just the bottom line.
He's even said companies need a social license to operate. What does that even mean?
It means they need to show they're serving everyone, not just their shareholders, employees, communities, the whole shebang.
That sounds pretty progressive coming from a Wall Street dude. But is he actually walking the walk?
That's the billion-dollar question. Because while Fink talks the talk about ESG, BlackRock still has tons of money in fossil fuels.
Hold up. Isn't that like a total contradiction? He's telling everyone to go green, but he's still making bank off the stuff that's killing the planet.
You see, that's why he's getting so much flack. Environmental groups are calling him out for hypocrisy, pointing out that BlackRock's voting record on, climate stuff is actually pretty weak.
So he's telling companies to do better, but when it's his own money on the line, not so much. Doesn't sound very purpose-driven to me.
Right. And that's not all. Remember we talked about BlackRock getting into private markets, especially infrastructure?
Yeah, Fink thinks infrastructure is the next big thing. Called it a holy grail for investors, right?
Yeah, but some people say those infrastructure investments are less about profit and more about power.
Power, like political power.
Exactly. They've been lobbying governments, especially the Labour Party in the UK, to put public money into these private infrastructure projects.
Wait, so they're using their clout to get taxpayer money funneled into their own investments? That's kind of messed up.
It definitely raises questions about, who's really benefiting. Critics say it's just another way for corporations like BlackRock to get rich off public resources, while the average person is left holding the bag.
So maybe Fink isn't just a financial whiz, but also a master manipulator, using ESG to polish his image while quietly pulling strings to line BlackRock's pockets.
It's definitely a theory. And to make things even weirder, Fink has actually started, backing away from the whole ESG thing.
Wait, why?
It's become so politically charged, He even said he regrets using the term.
He regrets it after pushing it so hard.
Yeah. Some people say it shows he cares more about calming down his critics, especially on the right, than actually pushing for real change.
Okay, so we've got infrastructure, ESG, political donations. It's like everywhere you look, there's Larry Fink. This guy's reach is insane.
It really is. But there's more. Remember the 2008 financial meltdown?
Oh, yeah, the big one. Wall Street almost went kaput. What's that got to do with Larry Fink?
Well, BlackRock got hired by the U.S. government to help manage the bailout.
The bailout. Seriously?
They were advising the Federal Reserve, telling them which assets to buy, which companies to say and which ones to let tank.
Talk about power. So he wasn't just riding out the storm. He was basically steering the ship.
Exactly. It shows you how much influence BlackRock has, not just on Wall Street, but in Washington, too.
So we've got Fink the crisis manager, Fink the infrastructure king, Fink the ESG guru, and maybe Fink the puppet master. It's getting harder and harder to figure out who this guy really is.
It is. That's what makes this whole investigation so fascinating. Is he really trying to do good, or is there something more self-serving going on?
To answer that, I think we got to look at what Fink himself has said. His letters, interviews, all those public statements. Maybe that'll give us a clue about what he really wants, what he's really thinking.
Yeah, you're right. Let's put Larry Fink under the microscope one last time and see what we can find.
Okay, so let's open up Larry Fink's brain here and see what makes him tick. What's he saying that might help us solve this whole grifter or gifted puzzle?
One thing that keeps popping up in his letters, his interviews, it's this real worry about the future.
Like he's actually concerned.
Yeah, and not just about like market crashes or which stocks are hot. He's talking about the retirement crisis, inequality, how messed up globalization is, even the stuff that's dividing us politically.
So he's not just some rich dude out of touch, ignoring the real world.
No, he actually seems to get it. And he's been saying, pretty loudly, that businesses need to step up, help fix these problems.
So companies can't just chase profits anymore.
That's what he's saying. They've got a duty to their workers, their communities, to society.
Sounds familiar. Isn't that his whole purpose-driven business thing?
It is. He's definitely pushing for a different kind of capitalism, one where companies think about everybody, not just the shareholders.
Okay, but that's where I get skeptical. We've seen that BlackRock's actions don't always match Fink's big talk. So is this just PR spin, make himself look good while BlackRock keeps doing what it does?
It's a fair question. There's definitely a gap between what he says and how BlackRock actually works, especially with their fossil fuel investments.
Right, that's the big contradiction. Hard to buy his ESG pitch when his company's bankrolling the stuff that's wrecking the planet.
I know, and that's the core of the grifter or gifted question, isn't it? Is Fink really trying to change things, or is he using ESG to protect BlackRock?
So is there any way to see it from his side? Give him the benefit of the doubt.
Well, some people argue that change takes time, especially for a company as huge as BlackRock. Moving away from fossil fuels, going all in on sustainable stuff, it's a massive shift.
Sure, but they've got more resources than most.
Right.
Why not move faster?
And that brings us back to motives. If Fink really believes climate change is this huge threat and ESG is the answer, shouldn't he be pushing harder inside BlackRock?
Maybe he's hitting roadblocks. Shareholders who only care about money.
Could be. Or maybe he's worried about making enemies. Powerful people in business and politics who don't want things to change.
So is he stuck in the system he helped create? Or is he the one controlling it, pulling the strings?
It's tough to say for sure. There's evidence that points both ways.
So after all this digging, where do we land? Grifter? Or gifted? Is Larry Fink a good guy or just another corporate shark?
You know, I don't think it's that simple. He's clearly a genius when it comes to finance, built a real empire, and he's not afraid to challenge how things are done to push for a better way of doing business.
But there's got to be a but here.
But he's still working within a system that puts profit first a lot of the time. And some of his moves, the political donations, the fossil fuel stuff, it makes you wonder how committed he really is to changing things.
So what's the takeaway? What have we learned from this deep dive into Larry Fink's world?
I think the big lesson is this. Power, especially the kind Fink has, it can be used for good or bad. And it's up to us, regular people, investors, consumers, to keep those in power in check. Make sure they use their influence responsibly.
That's a good point. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, the speeches, the image.
Yeah.
But we got to look deeper, see what they're actually doing, ask the tough questions.
Right. And that's the whole point of this deep dive, isn't it? It's not about deciding who's right or wrong. It's about thinking critically and having these conversations.
So we've covered Fink's rise to the top, how he plays politics, his whole ESG thing. We've even tried to figure out what motivates him. But as we wrap this up, one last thought. What does Larry Fink and the power he has tell us about the future of finance?
That's a great question to leave people with. If BlackRock, with all that money they control, keeps shaping the financial world, what does that mean for the rest of us? Will we see things get better, more sustainable, like Fink says? Or will it just be another version of corporate power where profit wins out over everything else?
Big questions.
Yeah.
And definitely worth thinking about. So that's it, folks, our deep dive into Larry Fink. Grifter or gifted? We'll let you decide. But hopefully this got you thinking, maybe even inspired you to do some more digging on your own.
Exactly. Remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about how this stuff works, the better chance we have of changing it for the better. Making sure money serves people, not the other way around.
All right, that's a wrap for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, everyone. Stay curious, stay informed, and keep asking those tough questions.